We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm going to have to move this back up just so I can keep the questions here. Okay.
Are we all set? Young love.
Yes. Second.
Okay, in that case, I'll go back, relax, let myself go. Okay?
All set, my love. Please envelop their sanity so completely in love that all needs, wants, and desires are chosen.
And greetings.
Greetings, Wonders.
Greetings, Maggie.
Would you please go to whom, to where, and to when you are directed? Would you please locate your facilitator, Maggie Gadet, on April 10th, 2011?
Yes, we have you.
We are gathered here at 8361 11th line, RR number 2, Thornton, Ontario, to do a general session for the Looking for Answers with the Wonders event. May we begin?
Please.
Thank you, Wonders. Wonders, for this event, for this session, we want to focus on the subject of cancer.
Well, good for you.
Yes.
You'll be the one focusing on it, not us.
Okay.
So it's up to you now, dear friend, isn't it?
Yes.
We're just here to answer your questions.
Okay. Shall we start in with the questions?
Please.
Okay.
No, wait until tomorrow.
Well, I wondered if you had a message or anything. You want. Okay. Let's see. Why are so many choosing the cancer experience?
The choice to experience cancer is a great way to harm the self, to reflect to the self the extent to which you harm yourselves. Cancer is pervasive. It moves within the body. It begins in one point and expands from there. So in effect, individuals who experience cancer are really saying to themselves that though the experience is at a certain point in time and space in their life, really they are saying that they have for a long period of time harmed themselves, chosen to harm themselves, and this is just a reflection of that self-harm. Now, some people, of course, look at it as being simply a physical manifestation to be resolved with a physical answer. And to that extent, this is what your allopathic doctors are doing, trying to, in effect, fix the cancer. But they don't really attack or expose or even discuss the underlying issues that brought cancer about. Cancer is not simply a disease of the physical. It's a disease of the mind, it's a disease of the emotions, and it's a disease of spirit as well. So when an individual experiences such as to choose to harm themselves, and by the way, cancer is not the only disease like this. Don't make that misunderstanding. But we're speaking of cancer, so cancer is that form of disease. Then, dear friends, you must look at all the aspects of the self, not just part of the aspects of the self. And those individuals who have truly gone to the depths of cancer and survived, they've survived by recognizing the interconnection of the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and as a result, therefore, have addressed all of those aspects within themselves in order to shift. Now, in some cases, though some individuals attempt to address all those aspects and still die of cancer, you would say, well, they addressed them. Why did they die? Well, they may have addressed it in the sense that they looked at it, but they didn't address it in the sense of actually shifting the self. Not just the mind, the self. Shifting the experience that you exist in. Shifting that manifestation that you call physical. Shifting that whole ego, personality, mind connection, soul connection. All of that must be shifted. And a love of life, a passion for living must be created. Most individuals, you'll find, most individuals who have cancer have in effect set aside their passion for living. And they simply live moment to moment, day to day, on the basis of what else is there to do. You see?
Yes.
Now, before you go any further,
Okay.
we've obviously expanded on that question quite a bit. So now we'll see how many questions really come up.
Yes. Yes. What are the effects on people worldwide with the Japanese nuclear plant's meltdown?
Yeah. Well, what you're going to find is that from a world perspective, many individuals will begin to experience radiation poisoning to their bodies. Now, of course, most of those will be those individuals near and around the radiation nuclear experience in Japan. However, because nuclear is really, or radiation is really a worldwide event, it's moving through the atmosphere, it's moving through the water, you will find that some individuals, hypersensitive to radiation, not all individuals, but there are some in the world, hypersensitive to radiation will be affected by this. Why are they hypersensitive? In part because of genetic structure, in part because of their own unwillingness to appreciate themselves, the choices that they've made in their lives, the neglect that they've made to themselves, the abuse that they've taken, that they've moved to their bodies. So the resultant is they've created a hypersensitivity, and this hypersensitivity will manifest itself. However, having said that, most individuals on the world will not be affected by it. It's, in fact, if you were to have a nuclear accident, it would be best to have it in Japan over, say, Chernobyl, which is where you had it before. For Chernobyl created a nuclear disaster unparalleled and that affected most of Europe, whereas this is affecting mostly Japan with some parts of the ocean. Because of the way the prevailing winds are working, because of the way the ocean currents are moving. So it's not to the same degree as what the Chernobyl incident is. You see?
Yes. What takes radiation out of the body?
There's a number of things that will do that. But one of the best ways to eliminate radiation from the body is to eat kelp, surprisingly enough. Now, we would recommend you don't eat kelp from around the nuclear plant in Japan right now. That wouldn't be a good thing to do. But kelp, preferably, and as we've said this before, there's some really good kelp around the Icelandic, or the country of Iceland. And that kelp is specifically of the best for eliminating radiation poisoning in the body. Now, you can derive you can use this kelp to eat it, which would help certain levels of radiation, but to derive intense levels of radiation, you would have to get a derivative of that kelp. In other words, make it a concentrate from the kelp. And that would then help the high dosage of radiation in the individuals. You see?
Yes. A question, is there a core belief that all who have cancer share?
Not really. It is not, you cannot, cancer is not a disease of singularity. You can't take cancer and narrow it down to one aspect. It could be said that some individuals are prone to cancer because of genetics. There's certain weaknesses in their genetic structure. Some of that weakness comes from the parents. The sperm and the egg were weak to begin with and created a genetic mutation within the embryo itself. So as a result, therefore, some individuals are becoming more prone to cancer from that perspective. Having said that, genetics does not in and of itself guarantee cancer. What guarantees cancer, of course, is the setting aside of the self, the lack of proper nutrition to the body, exposure to a great number of toxicities within the body, chemicals, some radiation, but mostly chemical toxicity. And as a result of that, then, added in a mix of genetics, and you've got a great, call it formula, guaranteeing that you will get cancer in your lifetime. So it isn't a question of one solution for everyone. It must be individualized from one perspective, as we can assure you, however, there are certain herbs, certain, call them techniques, that can be used to assist the body in replenishing itself, and as a result, removing the incidence of mutations in the body that is viewed as cancer. You see?
Yes. How does EMF waves affect the body with regards to cancer growth?
Well, electromagnetic frequency is no different than radiation of some sort. What you have is, in some cases, not all cases, but what you have in some cases is you have the electromagnetic frequency of the body not completely at sync with the electromagnetic frequency of everything that surrounds you. Your bodies, you are energy. Your physical bodies actually express themselves as electromagnetic frequency itself. So what you have is you have basically a frequency of your own body at working against the frequency of everything around you, and when that happens, then you have the possibility, notice the word possibility here, and increased probability of an incidence of mutation within the cells of the body, which of course then leads itself to cancer. However, it is not simply EMF that causes cancer. Now you must combine this with exposure to a great number of chemicals that are in your environment. These chemicals, having reduced the ability of the cell structures within your body to replicate themselves freely and properly, as a result, creates an environment where EMFs, in and of themselves then, can attack and trigger, if you want to call it that, a cell replication that is unparalleled within nature. Do you see?
Yes. How much radiation percentage-wise will the nuclear plant meltdowns add to the already existing amount?
And on a worldwide basis, approximately 1.3%.
Okay. How can we protect ourselves from vibrational pollution, including radiation poisoning?
The best way is to eliminate the toxicity in your body. And by that we mean, quite simply, start cleaning yourselves out. This is why we recommend a health protocol that involves minimal supplementation, good organic food, and of course spring water as best as you can get it. Now, water, as we've said before, no matter where you look on the planet, is polluted in some way. It has chemicals in it. However, if you can, the deepest spring water that comes from the deepest mountains is the best, for that has the minimal amount of pollution to it. Having said that, once you follow that health protocol, then you must clean yourself out. Liver cleanses are excellent. Master cleanses are excellent, for they do remove a great number of toxicities within the fatty tissues of your body. Failing that, you can also go for chelation, which will remove a lot of the heavy metals in your body as well as some chemical toxicity in your body. You can do it through chelation. You can do as well through some of it, at least. You can eliminate some of the chemicals, some of the toxins in your body through, one moment please, colonics. Those are helpful to remove that. So anything that will cleanse the body has a certain degree of, or element of removal of the toxicity. The more you do it, of course, the more you remove the toxins. So really, when you're looking at it from that perspective, then you are in effect protecting yourself from the possibility of cancer in your body. You see? That doesn't mean you'll eliminate it, but you are protecting yourself from it.
Yes. How can we protect greetings, wonders. Do tattoos contribute to cancer growth?
Well, look at it from this perspective. Tattoos in and of themselves are not really harmful. They are decorative in that sense. However, the inks that are used in the tattoos go into the skin. Now, in some cases, unless you're familiar with what is in the ink, some inks are vegetable-based and some inks are not. Now, even the inks that are vegetable-based, you have to be aware of what went into making that ink, for in effect, what you could have, is a concentration of certain chemicals within the ink itself that, once placed in your skin, will lead eventually to the toxin being absorbed in your body, the chemical being absorbed in your body, which could, not guaranteed, but could lead to You, of course, rebelling, your body rebelling against it, and then, of course, then you have the possibility of cancer. Now, as we said, and as we keep saying this to all of you, it isn't one thing that will lead to cancer, but of course, many things together. You tack on ingestion of chemicals, artificial chemicals that are in your environment, that are in everything that you use. Your clothes is covered in chemicals. What do you think that your fire protective clothes are all about? What do you think that anything made with polyester is about? Rayon. All of these have literally dozens of chemicals within them. So really, all of this is exposure to yourself. Now, we're not saying here go around and don't put clothes on your body. The solution, of course, would be to go around naked. You could have difficulty in minus 30 degree below zero weather. Having said that, however, do recognize that if you stay in certain types of clothes and combine that with certain types of exposure to the environment, like high exposure to heat, high exposure to other types of radiation, you could end up with absorption of certain chemicals into your body. And then that's just clothes. Then you've got food that is packaged in plastic. You've got all kinds of chemicals in your environment that you're using. Some of which your computers, your keyboards, your toothbrushes even are made with chemicals. So really, when you look at everything, you have a high exposure of toxins in your body already, which your liver can easily handle. Given that, then, we would encourage you, since this exposure of chemicals is rampant in your environment, the best way to protect yourself, of course, is to ensure that you have an elimination system that is functioning properly. And by that we mean a liver that is clean and fully functional. We mean a colon that is clean and fully functional. How many people really eliminate 3, 4, 5 times a day? Most people are happy to eliminate once or twice a day. Some people don't eliminate except for once a week. So really, elimination is the only way you're going to get rid of the toxins. And that means your kidneys must process your toxins. It means your colon must process your toxins. That means your liver must process your toxins. So the best way to do is to support those organs of your body that really allow toxins to be cleaned. Your spleen, for example, it cleans your blood. So support it as best you can. You see?
Yes. Explain why certain individuals are born with cancer. Is this karmic?
No, it's not. And what it is, it comes from the parents. Understand this. This is really important here. Individuals that are born with cancer, really, it's the genetic structure of the sperm and the egg. The sperm and the egg were flawed. And because they were flawed, literally, you have cancer being passed on genetically from the parents to the infant, to the child. And then in some cases, the sperm in the egg is not flawed, but the parent, the mother, has been exposed to a variety of different toxicity, which of course, by its nature, flawed the embryo. And then the embryo develops, and it develops with cancer. So there's a number of different scenarios at play here. But invariably, it comes down to an exposure to toxicity from the environment, whether it be in the embryo stage or whether it be in the nucleic stage of the sperm and the egg. Do you see?
Yes. Greetings. The wonder suggested we keep the one that says you cannot physically harm another individual. Could you expand on what it would take for humanity to move towards this idea?
This is not about cancer right now.
Okay. Why do young children and babies get forms of cancer? They haven't lived so long to harm themselves.
Of course they have. Do you think for one moment that because you've only been alive for 2 minutes that you haven't actually gotten exposed to a number of toxins and chemicals? Go to a hospital and have a child and take a look at the environment that you find yourselves in. Now, talking about hospital births here. We're not just talking about home births, but hospital births to begin with. First of all, you're supposed to be in an antiseptic environment. Right. What do you think creates that antiseptic environment? Chemicals. Now, you're into that antiseptic environment, and you're being exposed as a mother and the child to a variety of different chemicals in the blankets that are being wrapped around the infant, in the clothes that are being held, the drugs that are being used. You think an epidural doesn't affect the child? Yes, doctors will tell you that there's no real proof, but in actual fact there is. They just don't want to acknowledge the empirical proof that exists. So really, it's easy to recognize that an infant, a child, has been exposed. Look at the environment that you live in. Look at the sprays that are going on in the farms around you. Now, you don't live near a farm. You live 10 miles away from a farm. Do you think the overspray doesn't actually overspray in the environment? And if you are in the slightest bit genetically weak because of a weakness in the genetic structure of the sperm and the egg that formed you, then you are more susceptible to alteration of cellular replication than you would otherwise be, and that really is what cancer is. Do you think?
Yes. Which herbs help to stop cancer growth?
There's a number of them. However, having said that, there's a really great formula developed by a number of North American Indians, a formula that is known on the world around as Asymya. That is a really great formula to use if you have cancer. It's a benefit. However, there's a number of different herbs, depending on the cancer itself, that can be beneficial. A number of herbalists are aware of these. Traditional Chinese medicine doctors are aware of these. Some are Ayurvedic, so go to an Ayurvedic practitioner. They are aware of some of these. But recognize here that it's not one herb will cure all cancers. That's not the way it works. It must be met with a proper balancing with the physical body, which is why a herbalist, a naturopathic doctor, a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, they are the ones that can, or an Ayurvedic practitioner, they are the ones that can assist you in the balancing. Do recognize, however, and we keep saying this, you can't work only on the physical and expect that somehow or other cancer will be conquered. You must work on all parts. And by the way, if you really want to eliminate cancer, you really want to get rid of all the cancer in your body, go on a raw food diet of strictly organic foods. We guarantee you won't have cancer in your body for long.
How long does it take for radiation contamination to be cleared from an area bombed with nuclear warheads?
Well, it depends entirely on the type of nuclear material used. In some cases, it could take hundreds of years. In some cases, it could take thousands of years. It depends on the half-life shelf of the nuclear material used. Does it?
Yes. How about in Iraq and effects on those living there?
But there hasn't been a nuclear bomb exploded in Iraq. Why is this question being asked?
Yes. Okay. You're right. Is the ozone layer depletion leading to massive melanoma in the world? Many add chemicals to the skin to avoid this comment.
Do recognize that the ozone layer does protect the environment. Yes, the depletion of it means that there is a greater incidence of solar radiation hitting the planet. We agree with that. Having said that, your physical bodies are quite capable of handling most, not all, but most of this radiation. You haven't yet evolved to handle all of it. So you're quite capable of doing this. However, once that radiation hits your body and interacts with the chemicals that are existing in your skin, well, then you have an increased incidence of melanoma. Having said that, most individuals use a number of chemicals to protect themselves from radiation. The best way to protect yourself from radiation is to cover yourself. Cover yourself with some good organic cotton clothes where radiation will have difficult time penetrating. You still get some radiation, but it'll get rid of most of it. And of course, you can always use zinc. Zinc is a really great material to protect you from radiation. It's not very fashionable. It doesn't really look good, but it does work. Yeah. So most of the products that are on the market today that talk about solar protection, SPF protection, they have some form of chemicals within them that will protect the body. Agreed. But some of these chemicals can be and are actually carcinogenic in their own way, depending on the individual and the susceptibility of the individual. Most individuals are not. So for most individuals won't react to them, but there are the odd one who will react to these products because they are susceptible, because of their own particular body chemistry, susceptible to the chemicals that are used in these products. You see?
Yes. What can we do to protect ourselves against damaging microwave frequencies?
Well, one thing you don't have to do is you don't have to go around with a hat made of tinfoil, stick it on your head, and pretend that you're actually taking care of yourself. You don't have to cover your house with copper or tinfoil or anything like that to protect yourself. Do recognize that microwave radiation exists everywhere in your world presently. That radiation is affecting you. There's a few products that talk about protection of microwave radiation, personal products that you hang around your neck or put near your computers. Most of these don't work. They're not really worth anything. Your best way to protect yourself, as we keep saying, is clean your liver, clean your colon, clean your kidneys, clean your spleen, eat great organic food, drink good spring water, minimal supplementation. Take your vitamin C. Vitamin C is absolutely important to the body. It does protect the cells from further damage, as well as support them in their replication. So really, what else do you need? Do you see?
How serious a factor is wireless computer networks and mobile phone networks as for affecting development of cancer?
All of these networks do create additional pollution of electromagnetic waves or electrowaves, and as a result of that, they can trigger the cancer experience if the circumstances in the body are basically there. If you don't take care of yourself, if you eat good junk food, if your diet really is poor, or you may think it's good because you eat good fruits, good vegetables, but those fruits and vegetables are covered with all kinds of herbicides, pesticides, and insecticides. Well then, dear friends, what do you expect? All of these waves will not harm the body in and of themselves, but they will trigger replication of cell structures in a mutated fashion if the chemical structures that are in the body are present in the cells and they are triggered by these particular waves. So it takes a number of different aspects to work together here. Do you see?
Yes. Are far infrared saunas beneficial to the body?
Not really. It's a great gimmick. Because after all, you don't have to worry about anything else but far infrared heat. Well, it's light waves going through your body. Yes, it accelerates the movement of your cell structures. It gives you and creates heat in the body. We would encourage you not to move towards far infrared saunas. We would suggest instead the old-fashioned sauna. North American Indians used to have it. You'll find some people in the Norwegian countries do it. There's nothing better than really putting yourself in an environment of hot water or steam, hot coals, and basically sweating it out of your body. The only reason you have far infrared saunas right now is for convenience sake. Yeah, it does do what it says it does. It does create heat for your body, but we can assure you, as dry a heat as this is, the dry heat is not necessarily beneficial for your body. The moist heat is better, actually. It makes you sweat more, number one. It's better for the pores of your body, number two. And it's also better for your organs of elimination, number three, where the far infrared radiation that comes off of these particular saunas really affects the internal organs of your body and really are not beneficial to the real structure of your body. We would encourage you to move away from it as fast as possible.
What effect does high doses of oxygen have on cancerous cells in the body?
Well, that's a simple one. Cancer is really call it a replication of cell structures that exists in a very acidic environment. Now, high doses of oxygen, what they do is they bring your body to a more oxygenated state, balance the body more towards the alkaline state, and therefore the cell structures no longer continue to exist. They don't remain capable of replicating in that environment. Ozone is much better than oxygen, by the way, but both are beneficial. You see?
Yes. How does Asymya combat cancer?
Well, Asymya in and of itself is a simple healing technique, but it does present an opportunity to tap into energy. And now, Asymya really helps to rebalance the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Now, you'll find that some individuals practicing Asymya, if they have cancer, will choose to use certain herbs, good food, good water, certain herbs to assist them. And while practicing Asymya, they also balance the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual, as well as the physical. And the net result is you have a healing technique that can support the process of really bringing everything back into a state of balance, which is really what it can exist. You can exist with cancer, by the way, for thousands of years if you want, as long as you are in a state of balance. If you're not in a state of balance, then the cancer takes over. Do you see?
Yes. Some research claims that cancer is a kind of fungus growth, and lowering the pH in the cancerous area can reverse the growth. Is this correct?
In some cases, yes, but not in all cases of cancer.
What role does stress play in cancer development?
Well, stress just releases a lot more toxins in your body. Think about it. There you are, you're a body. You've ingested all kinds of chemicals. And we do mean all kinds. Approximately 6,444 chemicals per person on average. So now you've got all of these running around in your cell structure. Some of them are parked in your fatty tissues. Some of them are parked in your skin. Some of them are parked in your liver. Some of them are parked in your colon, in your kidneys, in your spleen, in your blood. Some of them are in your lungs. Anyhow, the chemicals are all there. Now you're into a stressful situation. Well, stress at that point releases a number of chemicals in your body through your adrenal glands to bring about a state of fight or flight. Now, the minute you do this, what you're doing is you're creating an opportunity for your body to respond without collapse. Great, wonderful. But now if you have constant stress, not just stress for one moment, but an elevated stress level that is continuous because you've got a lousy job, a lousy boss, a lousy wife, a lousy husband, a lousy family, life is lousy, whatever. Well, at that point, what you're doing is you're creating such a constant stress level in your body, such a constant release of chemicals in your body in order to create a fight or flight situation, that really you now have released a bunch of chemicals that are natural in the body to work with the unnatural chemicals that are in your body, and you now have a perfect storm for cancer.
Prostate cancer is common in men. What is the specific cause for this cancer and choice to avoid it?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, interestingly enough, the prostate cancer has to do with making that little well, depending on the size, could be little, could be long, could be big, thing between the legs work better, right? So it's based on the male sexuality. So look into those aspects of yourself emotionally and mentally and spiritually, first from the point of view of your own sexuality. Secondly, look at your diet. For your diet, we assure you, has affected your prostate, has affected the blood flow in your body. And of course, if you've got any kind of hardening of the arteries, then you've affected the blood flow into that area, which is creating, of course, a perfect storm for cancer in that particular area, along with the chemicals. The third thing to consider is consider the underwear you're wearing. Take a look at it. Some of it is cotton, we agree. Some of it is not. So take a look at the underwear. Take a look at the extent to which you wear tight underwear. If your underwear is tight and your testicles cannot breathe, then you have a better chance of getting cancer than you would otherwise. Your testicles were meant to swing free, dear friends. There's an old song that talks about freely swinging testicles. Just remember that. Let them swing free. This is why the Scots are so good for it, the Scottish people. When they wear the kilts, you don't see them having the extent of testicular cancer or even prostate cancer that most North Americans have. And, of course, from there, as we said, it also is based on your organs of elimination, so you must clean your body as well. However, in order to eliminate, the best thing to eliminate prostate cancer, of course, is saw palmetto extract. And there's a number of good ones on the market, but the A.E. Vogel company makes a great saw palmetto extract that is very powerful and can be used to absolutely eliminate prostate cancer. Do you think?
Yes. The wonders have spoken about physical health today, but did also mention the emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies affecting cancer in our bodies. Can you expand on this, please?
We have. If you've listened carefully to everything we've said, we've actually spoken about the emotional states as well. If you're talking about stress, for example, if you're talking about appreciating yourself, if you're talking about setting yourself aside. So really, all aspects of the emotional as well as spiritual, because spiritual is about loving the self, and all of those aspects are intertwined with your mental, where your mind is interfering in your body. Your mind says to your body, oh, hey, it has to be this way. Well, again, this is where you have to say to your mind, enough, step out of the way, let the body deal with itself. You will find, dear friends, that the cancer really is, the body is quite capable of balancing itself. Oftentimes, though, the mind interferes. The mind interferes through a perspective of emotion, which is not really the emotional self. The emotional self has been set aside because it's really not asserting itself, and the spiritual self is just quite content to let everything go along without actually applying itself. So the result is you now have basically all aspects of the self working against each other, or sometimes in conjunction with each other, to force cancer into the body as a way to reawaken the self to say, hey, smarten up. There's something going on here that you're not paying attention to. Don't look at cancer as a death sentence, by the way. Cancer is become ubiquitous with a death sentence. It really isn't. All cancer is. Cancer existed long before cancer became popular as a death sentence. The only reason cancer became popular is because really the pharmaceutical companies needed to be able to create a crisis whereby vast amounts of money could be raised to support the structure that they had to basically make profit on their particular product developments. Were it not for the pharmaceutical companies, cancer would not be the extent to which it is today. And certainly the interest in it would not be the extent to which it is today. So understand that it's really more hype than substance. Having said that, to a person who has cancer, it now becomes substance. Now, in the allopathic medicine field, a person has cancer, their solution is to poison you some more. Let's put some chemotherapy. Chemotherapy, think about it, it's chemical drugs. It's chemicals going into your body to suppress your immune system so that your immune system doesn't attack these particular cancer cells. Well, dear friends, Isn't that why you have an immune system in the first place? Is to eliminate that which is not natural to the body. Now, an immune system run rampant, yes, you have a difficulty. Why is the immune system running rampant? Because all of a sudden you have an overabundance of cancer cells running through the body. So it's not a question of suppressing the immune system, it's a question of, can you eliminate the cancer cells? That's the key question. And so far in your chemical or in your cancer industry has seen the solution more as a solution of suppressing the body's immune system while attacking the cancer cells, as opposed to simply being a little bit more specific. That's sort of like taking a shotgun to shoot the eye out of the head of a fly. Well, dear friends, you'll succeed, but you're going to get rid of the fly while you're doing it. Get the point?
Yes. How does MMS affect cancer?
What define MMS?
Yeah, I don't know, Wonders. I'll go on to the next question.
This session will end soon, dear friends.
Okay. Greetings, Wonders. Can you relate the shift that occurs in teleportation to the shift that occurs in healing cancer?
Good try. Trying to get teleportation into the cancer equation. No, this is not about that. Teleportation doesn't have anything to do with cancer at this stage. It will eventually, once teleportation is created, but it's not created yet, dear friends. So until it does, no, we're not going to indulge you in that particular conversation.
What might be the emotional causality tied into testicular cancer, and how would determine if the causality is emotional or otherwise?
Most of the emotional causality has to do with the sexuality of the male sexuality, the appreciation, and of course we're not saying simply being a male, we're talking about male sexuality and the balance between feminine and masculine energy. So really, most of that is the emotional causality, and the way to determine whether that has, it's not, as we said, it's never just one thing. That emotional causality of masculine and feminine energy, and balancing it within the male perspective and the male sexuality, in effect, can, as a result of that, cause a number of different things. Testicular cancer can be caused by a virus, for example. It can be caused by a number of STDs. So really, that could be the cause. But again, it's all about balancing the masculine and the feminine energy with the male perspective, and from there, recognizing that you have a number of different toxicities in the body that are presenting themselves in that area, which of course causes a great deal of difficulty. Testicular cancer is an interesting one because a lot of times the precursor, the trigger for testicular cancer can be, not we're saying that it always is, but it can be an STD that starts it all. You see?
Mm-hmm. Do annual mammograms actually cause cancer through accumulative effects of radiation from X-rays?
Yes.
Okay. The Wonders have mentioned cancer being a concept. Could you expand on how shifting our perspective of ourselves would affect our cells and likelihood to experience this concept of cancer?
And this will be the last question, dear Maggie.
Okay, Wonders.
The concept of cancer is really recognize here that it is a co-creation of your society. Were it not for the advent of the abundance of chemical structures in your society, cancer would not have been co-created the way it is. Having said that, then the concept of cancer is much more fearful than the actual disease itself. Think about it. How many people go around afraid of getting cancer, and how many people actually get cancer? It's the fear of cancer, of course, and now that creates an emotional turmoil within the body. It creates chemical reactions in the body, which triggers, of course, additional chemical reactions, which work with the chemicals and the toxins already present in the body. You then have a From there, a setting aside of the self-love of the person, then you have a lack of all of that fear leads you to choosing to harm yourself in some way, shape, or form. And if you don't die of cancer, well, you'll die of something else, but you'll certainly present yourself with cancer at some point in your life. We guarantee it. So the key here for you to recognize is that the concept of cancer has created in humanity such a great perspective of fear that it is, and it is being fueled by the pharmaceutical companies, by the chemical companies, and by even your society, by your governments in society, by their efforts to the Cancer Society, for example. Everybody relishes cancer, the March for Cancer, the March for Dimes, all of these things. They are all designed to make cancer and keep cancer at the forefront of your minds. And as a result of that, of course, you now have a boogeyman in the room, or an elephant in the room, if you want to call it that nobody really wants to talk about. And the elephant in the room is how much energy and effort you're putting into a discussion of a subject that really is not affecting the population to the degree that it can't be. Now, of course, since this advent of this concept, since this propagation of information, this manipulation, if you want to call it that, of the cancer perspective, well, you now find yourself with an increased incidence of cancer in your environment, all designed by pharmaceutical chemical companies and chemical companies and governments and individuals in governments who benefit financially and otherwise from this concept being passed on to the masses, so the masses can then, in effect, create for themselves their own perspective of cancer. The more you fear something, the more you attract it. So what's happening is, of course, is you now have a concept that's being passed on, that's being talked about, and the more that's being talked about, the more people say, yeah, I've got that. Yeah, I've got that. And the next thing you know, more people have it, and more people have it. Why? Because, of course, it becomes the, call it the disease of the current time of which is fashionable to get. It's become a fashionable disease. Heart attack is so passé. Yeah, it's so blasé now. And after all, who wants to die of a heart attack? It's so much better to die of cancer, because now with cancer, you can really die. You can suffer. You can go through all the things you have to go through. You lose your hair. You lose your body wastes away. Yeah, you can have, you now are a burden on society. Medical establishments must go to extreme lengths to save you. People can cry all around you. They can wail for you for months and years, in fact, while you battle your cancer. You have constant examples in your news and everything else of people who are overcoming cancer, who are battling cancer, who succumb to cancer. It becomes the choice, the disease, the designer disease of choice, if you want to call it that, by which to die. Heart attacks, nah, they're just so blasé now. You see?
Yes.
And this session must end, dear friends. And we do thank you. And to you all, the appreciation of all.
The appreciation of all, Wonders. Wonders, may we move to end this session?
Please.
Please perform all healings that are chosen.
Done.
Please relax the body to its natural state now.
And to you all, the appreciation of all.
The appreciation of all, Wonders. I would like Renee to awake, feeling completely loved now.
Came out of that session, it was kind of interesting because I saw, it was almost like I could see a ball with all kinds of different points on it, each one relating to everything else. And you could almost hit any one point and everything would light up on the ball. It didn't matter where you hit. So everything was interconnected. But the interesting thing is that I was fascinated because everybody was looking at this ball and saying how wonderful this ball was and how amazing this ball was. And boy, this was a great ball. And boy, you really had to get it. And everybody had to get a ball exactly like that, because if they didn't get a ball exactly like that, you wouldn't be an in person. To be part of the in crowd, you had to have this ball. That's it. That's what I got.
Thank you.
Hang in there, folks. We'll be right back with you while I give my wife a lovely little kiss. Okay, so I hope you had a really, really good time and enjoyed yourselves. As I said, once again, do remind everybody here that there's an amazing retreat coming up on July the 7th to the 19th called Broadening the Self. You can register by going to our website, thewonders.com, and clicking on the link on the left-hand side for retreats, and you can find out all about it then. Don't forget the next Looking for Answers with the Wonders event is coming up on May the 15th, again at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a Sunday. And of course, we have 2 great workshops coming up in May. The first one, May the 6th to the 10th, on Changing the World Now, which is going to be just one of the most powerful workshops I think we've ever put on. It's going to be powerful as heck. And on May the 27th to the 31, which is going to be even more powerful because it's going to be about absolutely nothing. And we have no clue what that is. So I hope everybody enjoyed themselves. I hope you had a great time. And thank you for participating. And like I said, May 15th, put it on your calendar.
The next general Q&A webcast.
That's right.
Yes.
In the meantime, good night, everybody. Have a good afternoon and hope you enjoy yourselves.
Good night, everyone, and thanks for all your questions.